Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to say happy Sunday, although I think this video is publishing on Tuesday, so I guess I should say I hope you had a good Monday as well, at least for people in the future. I'm Jay, and we're going to be playing around with casing a card that I did on live stream, but I think it would be fun to do in just sort of a process tutorial. And we're going to be playing around with Seaside Wishes, which is a combo embossing folder and cut, as well as there's a stamp set in it as well. The neat thing that I didn't realize is like all this stuff fits inside the folder or the DVD case thingy. So that's really nice. I have a bucket of stamps actually next to me that is always in some form of disarray because it's like really hard to tell what exactly I've done. I forgot to mention it during the video, but Wendy is offering a fun fold class, or I should say a second fun fold class. She has a first volume of her fun fold class, which is available and on sale right now. So anyway, there's a description box link. I'm not affiliated or anything, but I just think that it's a really neat thing to have if you're a beginner. So I'm going to grab a couple of brown inks just to sort of ink the top of this so that we have a little more dimension on our sand dollars. With these embossing folders, wherever there's the logo is the top. So I'm just going to take a little bit of apricot ink and just get it on in here. This may potentially stain the folder. I guess we'll find out. But basically, I'm going in with my lighter color. Then I'm going to grab some ginger. In the Stampin' Up! World, I think basic beige and, probably something like crumb cake would be fabulous for this, although I don't have those inks currently, hopefully in the near future. But I'm just going in around the edge with a slightly darker brown. So I did everything in the lighter brown, and I'm going to go back in the slightly darker brown. Then I cut a piece of cream cardstock, again, out of my stash, and I cut the standard panel size, so a quarter sheet of paper. And what I'm going to do is make sure I get this there's sort of a groove here, so you want to get it down. I do like that this folder basically will keep it a little off camera. Sorry about that. There's like a groove in this folder that will keep this all together, which is going to be great. I just want to make sure my cardstock is covered. And I could use a slightly bigger piece here, but I really don't need to. And we are back. I was able to get all the ink out of the folder just with a baby wipe, so that worked out great. I did miss my cardstock a little bit just to prevent it from cracking. So you see that some of the ink bled through a little bit. I really like how these came out. The look of these was just what I was hoping for. Sort of a little bit of color, but not a ton. Just because I feel like that's sort of beachy colors. This is a little more red than I would consider like a true beach color. Um, but it sort of depends what beach you're used to. So let me get this all put back, and we can work on our card. Um, there are dies here too if you want to do more of a if you want to die cut this out of a different color. You could certainly do that, and that would be a nice look because that would give you a nice sort of sand dollar-y vibe. So let's just grab some supplies and get to work on our card. Okay, so we grabbed some supplies. This is Night of Navy, and we're going to make our card base out of this. This is some paper from my stash. This is from the By the Bay collection, which I think was from about a year ago. Anyway, you can use any paper you want. You could even use ink smushing. You'll see how this goes together in a minute, but we're using this basically just to offset some of the cream and the white and the navy. And then I use this Waves of Inspiration stamp set, which I think also retired at the end of last catalog. But it has some really great sentiments like your strength is an inspiration and you're totally awesome. Um, there are also some sentiments in here. Your friendship is the best gift. I think I might use the your friendship is the best gift, but I use this wave and watercolor technique that my friend Jenna showed off recently to get a really nice sort of softer look to this. If you just stamp the stamp normally, it comes out like this, but then if you just spritz it a little bit, you get more of a wirier look, which I think it makes sense for this particular composition. This is 3 3/4 by about 3. Sorry, 2 7/5. So we're going to use this as one of our panels. So the first thing we want to do is grab our trimmer and make a card base. We basically want to make a side folding A2. So I'm going to cut this at 5.5. And the fabulous thing about this trimmer is I don't actually have to take the arm out to do any of this stuff, which I like quite a bit. Often uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Often the arm kind of comes out a little before the 6-inch mark, so that can sometimes be kind of a pain. So this is just scored, and then you can run over this with your bone folder if you would like. Mine is right here, so we will just do that to give this a good crease. Then what we're going to do is take our card base and fold it flat again. And pay attention to where the score line is. And I'm just going to cut that in at 1 1/4 on both sides. And I'm just going to rotate this and do the same thing, only down lower. And I just want to go from the bottom up to the score line. And that will give us basically a split card front that we can then decorate. And then I'm going to go in one last time. I'm going to fold these two flaps down and just work on this main flap. And then I'm going to just fold this in the middle, although you could fold it at some other dimension. So it's basically 2 1/8 that we want to fold at. So it's 2 inches, and then also I try to make sure my cutting blade is out of the way before I start scoring, just because it's easy to use the wrong one. So now we have a nice scored line here, and we're pretty much good to go with our card base. Essentially, what we're going to do is make an easel card out of this, but we're going to glue these two sides down. Whoops. And then we're going to put our stopper here. But we need to do a few more panels before then. What I'm planning to do is to use one of our waves. I think this is actually not the one I meant. Here we go. So this is going to be on the front here. And then there'll be a sentiment down there. And then what we're going to do is basically hang some of our extra little sand dollar pieces off this to make it kind of a unique look. So that it looks, I don't know, a little more together, I think. And what I think I'm going to do is, let me figure out what this dimension is quick. This is 3 inches. So I just need to cut this to 3 inches. So let's do that. I like the crest of the wave, so I think I'm going to cut from the opposite side. And this was done using my mini cube of Misty Moonlight, which I think I just showed you upside down. Yeah. Whoa! There we go. Which, as compared to this navy, is sort of a grayer blue. So we can do it like that. We probably need to cut just a hair off so that we have some nice matting. So I'm going to cut this to... I think I'll continue cutting from this side. Cut this to 2.75. So that will give us a really nice matted look here. Now we just need to cut some pieces from this guy, and you have a choice. I'm going to use pattern paper everywhere and then probably cut a white panel for the back that we can write on, but you can do it however you prefer. And then what we're going to actually, well, let me just cut to having all those done and attached for you. Alrighty, and through the magic of editing, we are back with all of our pieces. So let's get this guy together. Or girl, I suppose. Whatever you prefer your card to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is get our little side pieces on. Although really you can do this in any order depending on what works best for you. I'm using my ATG dispenser because I just find that it's doesn't require refilling as much. I do want to try the Stampin' Up! Adhesives as well, of which I don't have any, but some are coming. So I think it would be cool to do a comparison of the adhesives I have now versus the ones that Stampin' Up! Recommends to see what I agree with and what I don't after my couple years of card making. I do like that the Stampin' Up! Adhesive rollers are just smaller, which is nice. Like they're not as big of a pain to store because one of the two big issues with the ATG system are that the this thing is super big and is kind of a pain to store and live somewhere. And if you notice, the actual the sticky tape is exposed, so that can sometimes be a problem for like if you're going to bring it to a crop or something, right? So I'm just adding adhesive to the bottom of these so that I can fold them down. And ideally, these will all line up perfectly. Sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. It looks like we're pretty good today, but if it didn't, the easiest thing is to just cut everything on the paper trimmer when you're done. I think I actually like the backside of this paper better. I think this will be neat with the waves and give a little more contrast. So I think I'll change my mind. And I guess that's one thing I've learned is if you're in the middle of a project and change your mind, that's okay. I mean, I think we look at these tutorials, or at least I did when I was new, and you just sort of figure that that's the correct way, but that's really just one person's take. And that person may have a lot of experience. So I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that depending on you, may not work great for you. So I want to take these two smaller sand dollars, and if you look at this one, it's going to be sort of a hidden surprise. So I'm going to go and put them kind of like this. I'm just going to use some wet glue. And I do really like PVA glues for things like this. So if you have the mono that Stampin' Up! Sells, or if you have Line Co. or Fairly Art or any of that stuff will basically work pretty well for you. There are links below for shopping and stuff if you do need any of that, but I don't know. If you're like most crafters, you probably have a lot already, but I'm gonna try and keep this mostly together. I like the idea of sort of these overlapping sand dollars, and I'm gonna put my sentiment at the bottom. And then I want to hang, perhaps we'll hang one off. I kind of like the clean look. Like I'm not super duper like a clean look person, but I don't know. We could do half of the sand dollar just on the back. I kind of think that would be a neat look. Like cut this in half and then use half on the greeting piece and half on the that sort of hidden part of the easel card. Well, not really hidden, but you know what I mean. Like the piece you'll see when it is flat, but will not see as much when it is, or the opposite of that. The piece you'll see more when it's stood up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this with glue. The wet technique kind of wound up warping this paper because it's just standard cardstock. So what I'm doing is only putting glue about halfway up because I don't really want to glue my card together. Although wet adhesive does give you more working time for that. And there we go. So basically when it's popped up, it's gonna pop up like this, and we can decide where we want our stop to go. But when it's folded down, it's gonna look like this. So what I want to do is kind of put this $10 here, I think. And I'm going to just pick this up here so that I can line this up with the other two pieces of pattern paper. But when this is stood up, right, you'll see this as kind of a surprise. So what we can do, because it's easier when this is flat, is just get our back piece in place. I am not planning to put a sentiment on the back, but you certainly could if you would like. It's always nice to sort of pair sentiments. I especially like that if I'm using sort of a large, uh, like if you saw my card yesterday for the mystery craft along, if you're using a larger piece, there we go. Um, it can't, or I should say, if you're using a larger, more generic sentiment, it can be nice to basically put something a little more specific on the back. I think it would be a neat look to just sort of mirror this, because then this will be fairly balanced. You could certainly stamp more on the back than what I'm doing, because we have a bunch of extra pieces. You also get some interesting additional die pieces, which is something I didn't remark on before while we were getting this together, but I'll just show you quick. So, in addition to the piece we have that cuts out everything, you get these great swoop Ds that you can use for, you know, either you generally ocean, but you can also just use them graphically. So I think we're going to leave this like this. You could certainly, and that way you can just write on the back. You could also mirror this, but I thought this was kind of cool, like to have this mirrored. Anyway, the last thing you have to do is get your stopper together, and you can do this in a couple ways. You can cut multiple layers, which I might do because I think that'll give us a bit of a lower profile. But the other thing you can do is use foam adhesive on this, which we've done a couple times before. So let me show you the other approach. This is 2.5 inches, and then it doesn't really matter how thick this is exactly. We can measure it. We don't want it to be bigger than this, but if it's smaller, that's okay. So this is almost exactly an inch, so that makes this easy. So I'm gonna do just a hair smaller than an inch and just get two of these. Generally, about 3 layers is a good place to start because it'll give you a really enough of a sketch that it'll work, but it also won't add a ton of bulk. So there we go. So this looks good. All we really need to do is grab some glue or tape and put these together. Just gonna do a little bit. The only way to, and it's always good. I tend to put my sentiment piece like off to the side so I don't accidentally glue it on face down. Although that's not super easy to do, but I've done funny things to cards over the years. And then I just want to more or less center this. That would be helpful if I hadn't put the glue on the wrong side. Okay, let's try this again. Let's put glue down, and then rather than putting the glue on the mat, we will put it on the card where it will do some good. So we have our 2 layers. This top is where the overhang is. So this should nicely catch like that once we glue this down. And then with this open, it says, your friendship is the best gift. Now, if we have this more this way, I kind of like that actually. Let me just, and if you have paper that's warping like this, you can just sort of just bend it back and it'll eventually behave. It is sort of the nature of some of these wet method techniques that you kind of warp your paper a little bit. Of course, had I started with a more appropriate paper, that would have been less of a thing, but And I like that because putting the sentiment this far down means that these sand dollars are really sort of a hidden surprise. So this is what our final card looks like. There we go. Doesn't really catch very well if I'm doing it the other way, but that's what the front looks like. Here's what the inside is, and then You can put whatever message you want on the back. So anyway, thanks for checking this out. This is using, I think it's always nice to use products both from your stash, but also new stuff, just to sort of see how it'll all play together. I think um, Stampin' Up! Has always done nautical very well. They had a lighthouse stamp set that I don't own, but I had a while that was looking at pretty seriously. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. There's also the sea turtles, which I think would blend fabulously with that. And we'll probably make an appearance on a future video, but thanks for checking this out. And as always, feel free to leave any comments or questions. You can always email me down below. I have an email list if you want to get monthly updates on what's going on the channel. And I think that's pretty much it. I will be back in our usual regularly scheduled lives, which are on Thursday at 6:30 and Sunday at 6 p.m. Central. And those are both project lives where we do something. If there's any sort of product specific lives, those are just generally thrown in just so that it's easier for people to find stuff. And I think for our Stampin' Up stuff, we're probably going to do this time slot, which is Tuesday, right around 6 p.m. Central, because that's when a lot of you guys are home from work and are looking at stuff. So talk to you guys later, and it was great making a project.